What Lurks Outside the Door by Walking Shadow 18, read by Deathlight. It had started with those three little noises. Sunny Glade, a young mare out on her own, had not taken the noises as much more as some tapping in the middle of the night on her front door. It was probably just some critter trying to get in. So she had just left some bowls of food and water out. It didn't work. Every night she would once again hear the tapping. She was a light sleeper, and her ears deathly sharp on picking up sound. A skill she had gained in her career as a musician. She could literally hear a pin drop. The next night, she decided to confront whatever it was, and as soon as she heard the tapping, she grabbed her flashlight and stormed down and threw open the door. No pony was there. She couldn't see any trace of any pony in the vicinity. Even the bowls she had left out were untouched. The only thing she could see was there was a slight indent on her wooden door, where something pointed had been poking at it. Sunny Glade huffed and suspected the culprit was some late-night prankster, or a drunk with a mean sense of humor. She decided to make a call to the guards in the morning. But as she had closed the door, the tapping started again. Sunny Glade threw the door open, and again was met with nothing. For a few moments, Sunny felt scared. She quickly went back inside, and locked the door and used the chain lock as well. She was sure that whoever was bothering her was a harmless prankster, but she still felt safer with an extra lock on. She was a single mare, out on her own in an unfamiliar town she had just moved into, and it would not be uncommon that she might attract the attention of a stallion with ill intentions on her person. She made a firm mental note to call the guards in the morning about this. She went to sleep soon after, but slept lightly with a can of pepper spray on her nightstand. The next day, she called the guards before going to work. Her band had practiced for a concert in a few days, and Sunny had been ready for it. She couldn't let the events of last night ruin her mood or her skill. She returned home that afternoon, and smelled out the guards doing an extra patrol in her area of town. She gave the two guards a wave, and they waved to her. Sunny went to her house, feeling confident that the tapping would stop. After dinner, and a warm romance novel with a particularly heated engagement in between the two protagonists that left Sunny blushing, she had slipped into blissful sleep, content that tonight she would finally have peace and quiet. Sunny gasped, her eyes shooting open as she bolted up in bed. It was that sound again. Sunny got out of bed and listened, hoping to hear a scuffle, or the guards putting on cuffs on whatever sick bastard was tormenting her. That was all she heard, again and again, in a sequence of rhythm. Sunny sucked in a breath and slowly made her way downstairs. The tapping noise kept up, and seemed to get louder with every step she took. As she drew close to the door, the tapping stopped. Sunny held her breath, and waited, and waited. She must have waited for several minutes, before smiling and figuring that the culprit was finally done. Gone. The sound of nails or claws raking against the door made Sunny jump and look at the door. She rushed and threw the door open, and once more saw nothing outside. Her eyes slowly looked to her door now, as she felt her heart grow still and a chill run up her spine. 3 long scratch marks drew across her door, just under the tapping mark. But worse, as Sunny shined her light on the marks, she saw a faint red glow of blood mixed into the wood on her door. She looked outside and saw no sign of the guards. Sunny didn't want to jump to any conclusions. Maybe they were chasing whoever was behind this sick joke. Sunny froze, hearing the scratching noise, this time from the trees not far from her home, leading into the local wildlife park. It was hard to see into the dark, and her flashlight's beam didn't extend far, but she could hear the scratching. Then, the tapping. Sunny quickly slammed the door and locked it. She sucked in a breath and covered her ears. Why and who would be doing this to her? She had never done anything wrong to any pony. What reason did they have to do this to her? Was it a sick game? And where are the guards? Was it some sort of animal? Sunny's thoughts bothered her so much that she nearly leapt out of her skin when she heard the tapping noise once more at her door. She looked at the door before quickly running upstairs and slamming the door and locking it. She threw herself under the covers and threw a pillow over her ears. She hoped, prayed it would muffle the noise. Sunny didn't get any sleep that night. The following day, tired and exhausted, Sunny went down to the guardhouse, hoping for an explanation. When she arrived, she saw all the guards were busy, and when she came up to the desk, the pony took her down to the captain's office. She asked why she was brought down there, and wished she hadn't. The 2 guards that had been sent to patrol her neighborhood had been found just outside of town on the edge of the woods. Their bodies were hanging from the trees, mutilated as if something tore them apart. The autopsy was still in the works, but whatever had killed them must have done it swiftly and instantly. The captain asked her if she knew anything that could help the investigation. But Sunny felt he wondered if she was behind it. She told the captain everything about the past few nights. The captain hummed, rubbing his cheek. "Thank you, that'll be all," he said before letting Sunny leave. Sunny left the guardhouse, feeling disturbed and sick. More so, she felt worried. What had killed the guards? Was it whatever was tapping at her door? Sunny felt a chill later that evening, and she practically ran home after practice and locked all the doors and windows. She held tightly to a bat she had in the closet, wishing she had enough bits for a spell gun. She then waited. An hour passed before finally she heard it. Sunny sucked in a breath and slowly tiptoed down the stairs to her door. Her brain was telling her to run and hide, but she was sick of the running and hiding. She was tired, exhausted, terrified even. If it was some sort of animal, she wanted it gone. She wanted her life back. She wanted peace and quiet. But if whatever out there was dangerous, she didn't want to go rushing out. Slowly, with held breath, Sunny stood up on her hind legs and peeked through the door's spyglass and tried to see if she could catch a glimpse of whatever was out there. What she saw sent a chill up her spine and nearly had her recoil in fright. There, outside her door, stood a tall, lanky figure. It was shrouded in the night, but Sunny was sure she could make out a pale, almost stretched out like skin, on a thin, bony body. The creature, whatever it was, sat crouched on its long, spindly legs that folded backwards. Its front legs, attached more like Minotaur's arms, and were folded up to allow its long, thin-pointed claws to tap on the wooden door. Its head was round, oval-shaped, with no sign of ears and no hair at all. In fact, the creature's body was hairless and had no sign if it was male or female. It just sat there, tapping at her door. Sunny watched it, with a sense of terror building at this creature. She held her breath, afraid that any movement or breathing would alert it to her presence. The creature went on with this pattern, before its head slowly moved to stare up at her door. Sunny fought back a scream as she looked at the oval-shaped head, with nothing more than 2 big red eyes with no distinct iris. No nose, not even a mouth that she could see. The way the creature stared at the door, it was almost as if it was staring directly at her through the spyglass. Sunny could only stare back. Slowly, the creature then lifted the claw from the door and began tapping on the outside position of the door's spyglass. Sunny screamed, falling away with a thud as she moved away from the door. It knew she was here. It knew she had been looking at it. Sunny began to hyperventilate, rushing into the living room. She grabbed her couch, and with a strength she didn't know she had, she pushed it against the door to act as a barrier, and rushed upstairs to her room. She did the same to her bed, pushing it against the door. She didn't fall asleep that night either, only sat in the corner of her room, watching the window and the door, listening to the tapping at her door. Sunny began to cry, begging for it all to stop, praying to whatever higher power there was to deliver her from this nightmare. The tapping eventually stopped, but Sunny didn't move. She just listened and watched as she looked to her bedroom door. The sound of glass being tapped against brought her attention to her window. Sunny screamed as she saw the silhouetted form of a long spindly claw-like appendage and an oval-shaped head, crawling up her house and tapping at her window. The creature stared at her, silent and constantly tapping. Sunny screamed and threw herself into the closet. She stayed awake all night, clutching her bat tightly. When the sun finally rose that morning, the creature was gone, but it left the deep marks in her door and the scratches on her window. Sunny cried that day and didn't go to practice. She had to leave, she had to get out, to get away from this town, get away from this creature. But she couldn't. She spent so much money on this house. Her savings were low, and she didn't have enough bits to buy a new home, much less any apartment in the city. And even if she could sell the house, who would buy it? What did she say about the door? And the dead guards were already causing some houses that had been pending for ponies to move into go back onto the market once again once the word of the murder had spread into the news. She was trapped here, in this house, in this town. Sunny felt the creature knew it. For days after, Sunny didn't sleep a wink. The music practice faltered, and she was cut from the band. Every night, the creature would return to tap on her door or scratch at it. It never went back to the window again, just the door. Still, she had nailed the window covered with boards, just to be sure. She tried to ignore the sounds, but always she could hear it in her head. The tap, tap, tap. Like a constant companion it was, haunting her mind and driving her crazy. Sunny felt like she was going to lose her mind, when one day she heard something. When she peeked outside her bedroom door to look down the stairs at her front door. In the dark, she could barely make out the slender shape of a claw-like appendage, thin and spindly, worming its way through her door. It must have made the hole in her door with its constant poking, and now its finger could slide into her home. Sunny watched with horror as the claw moved like a snake, its multi-jointed points moving to flick at the lock on her door and push away the chain. The door slowly slid open, and the creature crawled in on all fours. Sunny slammed her bedroom door shut, locked it, and threw her bed once more against the door, then her nightstand, and covered herself in her blankets in a corner and hid herself. The sound began again, this time on her bedroom door. It's been about a week now. She was tired, exhausted, her health was terrible, and she could barely focus now. She hasn't left her house in days, fearful to even leave her room in the middle of the day. Every night, the tapping noise would come back, with scratching in between each tap. Sunny sucked in a breath and paused at the noise, and fear gripped at her heart as she heard it. It unlocked the door, opening it. The creature slams the door against her bed, each time moving it until there was a tiny gap in the door. As the thin creature slowly crawls through the gap, its oval-shaped head squeezing through the gap as it crawls around the bed. Sunny turns and hides herself under the covers, looking away. She can hear it move. It was right next to her. She could feel its spindly claws dragging themselves across the covers on her body, making slight ripping sounds against the fabric. Then a noise against her wall, just above her head. Sunny began to cry, not sure what to do. This creature, standing just inches from her, tormenting her with that infernal noise. It never once stopped, even as she cried. Sunny couldn't take it anymore. That noise, that horrible noise! Sunny began to hit her head against the wall, trying to drown out the tapping. She kept going all throughout the night, her head and the creature's claw moving in sync with each other. Sunny stared at the white walls of her new room. The light was bright, but her room was comfy and soft. She tried to move, but found her limbs restrained in her new coat. She couldn't quite remember how she got here. It was all so very fuzzy. The guards had shown up to her house, apparently alerted by something. They had taken Sunny away from her home and brought her down to the hospital. The doctors? Yes, there had been doctors. Apparently she couldn't go home. She was sick, they said. They had given her this new jacket to wear all the time, and even gave her this lovely room. She was even a part of a new community. The ponies were nice to her and very cheerful. Some would even burst out into laughter for no reason at all. Yes, it was a fine community. And the room. Sunny loved her new room. It was so peaceful, so quiet. And the walls, so very soft, almost like snow. Sunny liked the walls. They didn't hurt her head as much. Slowly, Sunny tilted side to side in her new room, humming to herself a little tune. Enjoying the soft press of the walls against her head every few seconds. She thought also she could hear something at her door.